All right, Nick, let's talk about the Fighting Irish. Amongst this team's accomplishments this season, recruiting has been one of the big ones, and they have not let off in that aspect. Another big commitment to the Fighting Irish today. I think this is going to be a good one going forward, and another win to put in the books after their win versus Wake Forest. Let's get into the article, and we can talk about it on the other side. This is, of course, from On3 Sports. This class of 2025 cornerback Cree Thomas of Phoenix, Arizona, Brophy College Prep, announces his commitment to Notre Dame Monday afternoon. The 6'1", 180-pounder chose the Fighting Irish over Wisconsin, Oregon, and Arizona. The Copper State cornerback joins coach Marcus Freeman in the Fighting Irish's top 6 2025 class. He is accompanied by 4-star quarterback Deuce Knight, 4-star tight end James Flanagan, among others. Thomas ranks as the number 372 player in the On3 industry ranking. He also tabs in as number 43 cornerback and the number 2 player in the state of Arizona. So, Nick, we always talk about a couple things, especially when we're looking at commitments. One is locking down really good out-of-state commits, and the number 2 player in the state of Arizona shows Notre Dame has a lot of reach. Obviously, it's a big-name program. They have a lot of notoriety, a lot of history, so there's a lot going for Notre Dame in that aspect. But I think the fact they got this guy over some other guys, his home school of Arizona, who's been doing very well lately, they got him over Oregon, who's been great at developing corner prospects lately. I think this just shows that Notre Dame has a lot going for them. I know the season doesn't end exactly the way you want it to, but if you look, your only losses are a very, very good Ohio State team, now that we know, extremely good Louisville team, and a feisty Clemson team as well. So those are 3 losses I think that we can grow from and move on from. And I think getting recruits like Thomas and keeping that 25 class that is top 6 right now, which is also very impressive, keep that going. That is how Marcus Freeman keeps this team going into the future. I'm interested to know what you think about this commitment, Nick, and what it means for Notre Dame. But Notre Dame fans, we got to know in the comments below. We've heard the comments, we've heard the rumors. Notre Dame coming back much healthier for this game versus Stanford. So I want to know in the comment section below, what do you think the score of the Fighting Irish versus Stanford this coming weekend is going to be? Let us know in the comments below. But Nick, what do you think about this commitment and what does it mean for Notre Dame?
So you brought up a great point that this season did not go nearly as well as Notre Dame fans probably hoped it would, right? Obviously, bringing in Hartman, Freeman, building a really strong program here, working off what Coach Kelly did at South Bend. This was a team a lot of people thought could potentially challenge for college football playoff berth. It has not worked out like that. But here's, I think, the interesting thing, because one of the times this time of year when you hear about college football players, or I'm sorry, high school football players announcing their commitments, usually it's to the schools that are going for the college football playoff, right? That you get in Georgia this time of year, Alabama, traditionally Ohio State. Those are the guys that get these commitment announces, just because these other recruits that aren't looking to go to those schools, they have a chance to take a step back and kind of wait and just see how everything shakes out, see how bowl games play, see what guys announce for the NFL draft and things like that. The fact that the Notre Dame Fighting Irish recruiting department is able to go out and get this guy to commit now at this point in the season, I think is a really strong indication, because it's one of those things when a program isn't at its peak and they're still able to recruit well, that's a great sign, especially when you consider the fact they're recruiting well nationally. Because it's not like this is a local kid, like you alluded to, who's from Indiana or is from the Midwest or something like this and grew up loving the Fighting Irish or something like that. It's an Arizona kid. It's a Pac-12 kid, right? This is not a guy who, spends a lot of time probably thinking about Notre Dame growing up, probably watched a lot of Arizona State, Arizona, maybe USC, schools like that. So again, this just speaks to Notre Dame's ability to recruit nationally, even when they're not at their peak. Any coach, any school can recruit at a high level locally when you're playing well. There's only a handful of schools that can recruit nationally when you're playing well. I tell you what, it's a special coach. It's a special recruiting department when you can recruit when you're not playing as well as you'd like nationally. And that's exactly what we're seeing from Notre Dame. And I think it's a great sign for the long-term trajectory of this program, because one of the things you want to do if you're Notre Dame and you always are in this weird situation, the independent, right? You're not going to be in the conference championship game. So it makes the regular season so brutal. You don't play any 1AA team. So it's a tough schedule. It's a unique schedule, travel all across the country. You got to take advantage of your recruiting pipeline from a national level more than any other program has to in college football. And again, Coach Freeman is doing just that here. So I think even though this season has not gone exactly the way Notre Dame fans had hoped, The fact that they're still recruiting well, especially nationally, especially with 3 losses under the belt, I think it's a great sign for the future going forward, especially if they can get the quarterback position addressed for the long term. I think that's the one thing holding them back. But in terms of overall health and long term trajectory of the program, I think it's in a good place.
Yeah, Nick, and we're talking about where the program wanted to be, where fans wanted to be. If we're being real, Notre Dame probably beats Stanford, finishing the season at 9-3. That's a heck of a good season. And I think the biggest problem we're looking at is they probably overvalued what Sam Hartman brings to the table for this team a little
Mhm.
bit. I don't think he was as good as advertised. I think he was still okay. He wasn't horrible, but I think that they really need a little bit more firepower at the quarterback position, which the recruiting they have been and will be doing may be able to help them out. As I said, they got some really great recruits in the quarterback position coming in as well as Creed Thomas. So I think this is what you need to look at for Notre Dame. A guy that got through the transfer portal wasn't as good as advertised, but guys they've been recruiting, these talents they've been picking up, I think that's where the future lies. So as Notre Dame finishes with admittedly weaker quarterback play than wanted at 9-3 this season, probably going to a really big New Year's Six bowl game, something really respectable bowl wise, at least you go on into the next season and have a fresh new face at the quarterback position of a recruit that Notre Dame has picked themselves, which they have been doing a very good job of lately. So I think, like you said, there's a lot of good things looking up for Notre Dame, and I think you have to take this season overall as a win for the Fighting Irish, just like you said, to show that they've kept the strength of their recruiting, although they kind of missed the mark as far as where they wanted to end up.
And I think you bring up a great point to end on. If you look at the top contenders in college football, how many of them are starting transfer quarterbacks? Right, only Oregon and Bo Nix comes to mind off the top of my head. I know, I guess Washington and Michael Penix Jr., but again, that's two exceptions to the rule, right? You look at Georgia, homegrown. You look at Alabama, Jalen Milroe, homegrown. You look at Michigan and Ohio State, right? Homegrown talent, and traditionally that's the way to do it. And I think if Notre Dame can go back to recruiting at a high level and not relying on the transfer portal, and they have been recruiting at a high level, I think they'll build off of, like you said, this 9-3 season and work towards more successful campaigns in the future.